West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël.
We previously reported here on the Midas Touch Network how Donald Trump spent the day trying to sell Bibles for $59.99 that he calls the God Bless the USA Bible, and he says that this is the only Bible to be endorsed by Donald Trump. And when you go to the website, it warns about very sticky pages in this Bible and says that that is normal. It says, what if my Bible has sticky pages? Are some of the pages in your Bibles sticking together? No worries. This is very common with new Bibles that have gold gilding around the edges of the paper. For your convenience, we have provided links to a YouTube video that does a wonderful job explaining how to break in your new Bible. Well, President Biden is responding to this, and a lot of Republicans, mainstream Republicans, right-wing Republicans, conservatives, Nikki Haley supporters, Ron DeSantis supporters, are also expressing their outrage and disgust that as we head into Easter, that Donald Trump is spending his time grifting off of people by selling Bibles for $59.99. Here was the post by President Biden's campaign. It says, left. Here's President Biden today focused on lowering healthcare costs and stopping Trump's plan to rip away healthcare from millions of Americans. On the right, you have Donald Trump today hawking $60 Bibles that he's making royalties of, claiming that other Bibles are not endorsed by him. Let's take a look, though, at some of the responses from Ron DeSantis supporters and from conservatives. This is Peter Henline right here, a big DeSantis supporter at Swiss Watch Guy. Always like to share his perspective here because I want to know, and I know we have supporters here who are Nikki Haley supporters, DeSantis supporters, independents, also lots of progressives and liberals. But I think everyone's just getting disgusted by Donald Trump. So I just want to give you this perspective right here. Peter writes, Trump, a billionaire hawking $60 Bibles for personal profit, is just straight up mocking Christianity as a product to be commercially exploited. And yet none of these conservative pundits who pretend to be guided by Christian faith and values have said a thing about it. Then the comments from other DeSantis supporters and other Republicans to Peter are like this. This is from Danny Challenger. As a Christian, it infuriates me to see this con man, who clearly has no respect for God, try to sell Bibles for his personal profit. This is how you know all of these conservative influencers are mostly all grifters who don't practice what they preach. David, Florida Strong. You see that alligator there is the sign that the DeSantis campaign was using. David writes, mock him all you want, but there'll be one in every trailer park. Educating Jackson goes, He's promoting them for a friend during Holy Week. My goodness. Tally Lassie 47 says, yet these so-called evangelicals are backing him, and are they thinking it's okay to hawk Bibles now? Not right, he got reduction in his bond and extension to pay it. He's always getting away with crap, Jack writes. But wait, there's more. Besides a King James Version translation, it also includes copies of the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the Pledge of Allegiance, as well as a handwritten chorus of the famous Greenwood song. Myro Tarzik says, for Trump, everything is for sale. By the way, another conservative right here. All these people are conservative. For Trump, everything is for sale. He's always been a salesman, not a leader. I'm sorry that if he wanted to change the Republican Party name, I'm sure that if he wanted to change the Republican Party name to Trump Party and charge a licensing fee for that, like the Bibles, many of his supporters would applaud it. The Republican Party is a mess. In one of the videos we recently did here at the Midas Touch Network, we get thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of comments just like this. This is from Virginia 7539, who said, this former Republican is voting blue in November 2024. And just so you see the extent of this grift by Donald Trump right here, when you go to the website, it tries to act like Donald Trump is not getting paid for this. There's a frequently asked questions section. First it goes, is this Bible officially endorsed by Donald J. Trump? And they call him President Trump. Yes, this is the only Bible endorsed by President Trump, they say. How pathetic can you be? And this from the frequently asked question portion. Is any of the money from this Bible going to the Donald J. Trump campaign for president? Watch his response. No. God bless the USA Bible.com is not political. It has nothing to do with any political campaign. God bless the USA Bible.com is not owned, managed, or controlled by Donald J. Trump, the Trump Organization, CIC Ventures LLC, or any of their respective principals or affiliates. God bless the USA Bible.com uses Donald J. Trump's name, likeness, and image under a paid license from CIC Ventures LLC, which license may be terminated or revoked according to the terms. Donald Trump is the owner of CIC LLC, which pays Donald Trump. This is a licensing deal with Trump for him to endorse a Bible and say that a sticky page Bible. What in the world? But I guess the person who brought you NFTs and golden sneakers or fake golden sneakers and Trump trading cards, and you go on the website, by the way, and you see all this, here's a Trump gold card right here, and here's a Trump gold bill, here's a Trump gold bar. Seriously. Back to President Biden's post. On the left, President Biden today focused on lowering healthcare costs. On the right, Trump. First, let me play for you President Biden. Let's play President Biden today. Play the clip.
But even during the deadly pandemic, Trump and his MAGA friends in Congress wanted to get rid of the ACA, kick millions of Americans off their health insurance. It's sick. Now they want to, quote his word, terminate the ACA, as my predecessor says. If that ever happened, we'd also terminate a lot of lives as well. But we're not going to let that happen, are we? We're not going to let that happen. Here's what it would mean if they get rid of the ACA. Because of Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans in Congress, 45 million people nationwide would lose their health insurance, including 1.4 million right here in North Carolina. 100 million Americans with pre-existing conditions, from heart disease to asthma, could lose their protection as well. And millions of young people, like a 20-year-old kid who just graduated from college, could get kicked off his parents' plan because they can't stay on until age 26 any longer. Trump and the MAGA Republican officials want to take us back where cancer patients were cut off from insurance halfway through the chemo because they reached what they call their limit and what they're willing to pay, the insurance company. They want to take us back when women can be charged more for health care and preventive services like mammograms, and they'd no longer be free. And I'm serious, this is what, if you didn't know any better, you think I'm making this stuff up. But they aren't stopping there. MAGA Republicans in Congress just proposed a plan to get rid of the power of Medicare to negotiate lower prescription drugs, which could drive the cost of insulin back to $400 a month instead of $35 for seniors, and so much more. They plan to slash Medicaid as a result. They could close out 100 rural hospitals, hundreds of rural hospitals. You know how these rural hospitals make it? They make it because of the health care plans that are made available through the ACA. That's how they can afford to stay open. So many across the country, rural plans.
On the right, Donald Trump hawking $60 Bibles that he's making royalties of, claiming that other Bibles aren't endorsed by him. Here, play the clip from the post by President Biden.
What can we do? Stand up, speak out, and pray that God will bless America again. I'm proud to endorse and encourage you to get this Bible. We must make America pray again. Pray, get educated, get motivated, and stand with me and the legions of Americans asking God to bless our great nation, to bring our great nation back, and to make America great again. I'm proud to partner with Lee in this offering. He's a very special man, both as a talent, but maybe even more so as a human being. He's very, very special.
And again, you've heard me say it before. I'm very, very, very proud that the Biden campaign is finally pushing back every single day, relentlessly exposing the Donald Trump grift. And as I've said before, you hear me say it all the time here, folks. This ain't like Democrat v. Republican, liberal v. conservative. That's not the moment. This is about democracy and normalcy and competency on the blue side of the equation. And then you've got Donald Trump, this like wannabe fascism, this weirdness, this dangerousness, this malignant narcissism, this Trumpy cult. That's what you've got going on there. And you got Donald Trump posting, "I'm not running to terminate the ACA," as crooked Joe Biden disinformates and misinformates all the time. Come on, what are we talking about, folks?
It is Wednesday, the 27th of March of 2024, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef. Precious the little Yorkie is our door girl. And hobbling though she is, she will be seating you directly for our especially special daily special, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Will no one rid us of these meddlesome priests? No one. Wow. Yes, at the top there, that was Midas Touch breaking down Trump's latest grift. Yeah, he's hawking Bibles with the Constitution in it. Is that Christofascism or is that Christofascism? The guy's never cracked a Bible. He's read more of Hitler's quotes than Bible quotes. He can't even quote the Bible, correctly even. So, it's par for the course. If this guy is the Antichrist, well, he would be doing this, wouldn't he? He would. So, is there an Antichrist in other world religions? I wonder. But anyway, I suppose if one were to follow that construct, Trump fits the bill. And who knows? Maybe Barron's going to turn out like Damien. You never know. I will once again say I kind of feel sorry for that kid. Every time he's out in public, he really looks like he doesn't want to be there. And it could just be, the behavior of all kids at that age. He's a gangly kid. But I just kind of feel sorry for him. I think that there's a lot of pressure. And I might also add, and I am not an expert, he seems like he might be on the spectrum to me as well. So we might say lots of untoward things about Melania, but she may be the barrier between Barron's well-being and his dad. So you never know. But yeah, until Barron turns out to be like Damien, I'm just going to have a bit of sympathy for the kid. The older ones, geez, get out of here. My God. And the brother-in-law, too. The son-in-law. All right. Well, I guess we'll have to continue going after Joe and his family. You know, a family who has dedicated themselves to public service and the well-being of others, as opposed to what MAGA tends to valorize, and that is being a bully, being crass, coarse, etc. and then when we kick back, they can say, "You're so violent. You're so racist. You're so bigoted." Yeah. Project all you want. We really do know the truth. All right. Well, some good news. It looks like, was it Alabama or was it Arkansas? I think it was Arkansas. All of a sudden, I'm having a brain lock. But regardless, we, meaning the Democratic Party, because, you know, we're a party, there was a flipping of a red seat to a Democratic candidate, and she won. And what did she run on? Well, abortion rights, women's health. And this is in spite of Carville out there saying, all these shrill harpies, they're trying to be the voice of the Democratic Party. Well, James, it's women's rights, stupid. After Dobbs, a lot of women got pissed off. In every election since Dobbs, when candidates have been running on women's rights, women's health, they have won handedly. In fact, it's gotten so bad for MAGA, they are trying to figure out ways not only to keep people from voting, but from allowing these citizens' initiatives to reach anything approaching an election. And, you know, I guess they can do it when they control state legislatures, and we need to wrest those back. We do. And we all know that. So, what else is there? I just thought that was quite a big story, and of course it's so big, I can't even remember what state it was, Alabama or Arkansas. I hope it wasn't Georgia, because, you know, I'm trying to be a little precise here, and I'm not even approaching it. Oh, well. All right, well, with that stated, it obviously means I need more coffee. So why don't we, give you a rundown on what we have in store for you in the curated part of the show, which we're going to turn to right away. Oh, my God, what a morning. Well, at the top, that's Trump's shameless grift. Well, it's backfiring. It is. And we'll see how much it backfires. On the rest of the menu, a federal court tossed Republican Pennsylvania lawmakers' challenge of state and federal voter access actions. Yeah, they're just trying to keep people from voting. Ahmaud Arbery's killers asked a U.S. appeals court to overturn their hate crime convictions. Yeah. Hate crime is not a crime. How many times have I heard that before? And a large suburban Philadelphia county has joined dozens of other local governments around the country in suing the oil industry over climate change. After the break, we move to the chef's table where the British Museum is suing a former curator it says stole 1,800 items and then tried to sell them. And Puerto Rico's health secretary declared an epidemic following a spike in dengue fever cases. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, to the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by the Kelly Lincoln, who does lots more than just monitor the chat room. So thank you, Kelly, for everything that you do. If you out there in radio listening land would take a gander across the page to the left, and just down a skosh, you'll notice the link to our Patreon page. And if you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, it really does help us put a big dent in the bills and also the other sundry costs associated with keeping this powerhouse of resistance resisting powerfully as we have for, well, going on 14 years now. My God, that long. Who knew? Anyway, thank you for your generosity over these many years in allowing us to fulfill our civic duty as the founders originally intended so many, many years ago. I'll get it out. I need more coffee. That's the excuse. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter and all social media for that matter, do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that and a lot more as well. Thank you, Tom. Follow me on the social media platforms at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diaries. I know they're trying to call them stories, but for us oldsters, they will remain diaries. But anyway, I post the show notes and links diaries on Daily Codes 10 minutes before showtime, so you have quick access to the actual reportage by the actual reporters, because it's important, and we do it. Follow the show on Twitter, such as it is, at Cookbook West, and that would be Twitter and the show, such as it is, at Cookbook West. And also, most importantly, please do pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, even Audible. Okay, we're everywhere. Pick them up. All right, let us now tuck into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and it is by, well, hard-working staff at the Associated Press. An attempt by conservative Pennsylvania lawmakers to overturn a shift to automatic voter registration was dismissed by a federal court yesterday, Tuesday, along with their other challenges to actions designed to boost voter registration. They don't want people to register to vote. It will be illegals voting. Yeah, okay. Nice pandering. The lawsuit, filed by 24 Republican state lawmakers in January, challenged the legality of a 2021 executive order by U.S. President Joe Biden that ordered federal agencies to consider ways to expand voter access. It also took aim at two Pennsylvania-level orders: Democratic Governor Josh Shapiro's introduction of automatic voter registration last fall, and a 2018 state directive under then-Democratic Governor Tom Wolf that said counties cannot reject a voter registration application solely on the basis of finding that the applicant submitted a driver's license number or social security digits that don't match what is in a government agency database. The lawmakers argued that the three actions to bolster voters required legislative approval and never received it. Messages seeking comment were left with attorneys for the lawmakers. In her decision, Pennsylvania U.S. District Judge Jennifer Wilson wrote that the lawmakers did not have legal standing in their filing. A vague, generalized allegation that elections generally will be undermined is not the type of case or controversy that this court may rule on under the Constitution, she wrote. In a statement, Shapiro called the lawsuit frivolous. Automatic voter registration is safe, secure, efficient, and entirely within my administration's authority, he said. The lawsuit highlighted continued efforts to litigate voting and election rules particularly in a battleground swing state, critical to the 2024 presidential contest. They don't want people to vote because when people vote, they might also not be able to manipulate the Electoral College like they did the last two times. They won once and they lost again, and they are determined not to ever lose after that. I should add that here in Oregon, we've had automatic voter registration. Every time you go to get a license, you're automatically registered. Yeah, they know if you're a U.S. citizen or not. There are certain things that you are required to do to get a driver's license. And it's also very delicious for those conservative states who say that you need to have a photo ID to vote, are against getting a voter ID and being automatically registered to vote. Next offering is brought to us by Kate Brumback and Russ Bynum of the Associated Press. Attorneys are asking a U.S. appeals court to throw out the hate crime convictions of 3 men who used pickup trucks to chase Ahmaud Arbery through the streets of a Georgia subdivision before one of them killed the running black man with a shotgun. A panel of judges from the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Atlanta was scheduled to hear oral arguments today in a case that followed a national outcry over Arbery's death. The white men's lawyers argue that evidence of past racist comments they made did not prove a racist intent to harm. On February 23rd, 2020, father and son Greg and Travis McMichael armed themselves with guns and drove in pursuit of Arbery after spotting the 25-year-old man running in their neighborhood outside the port city of Brunswick. Jogging. Not running. He was jogging. A neighbor, William Rhodey Bryan, joined the chase in his own truck and recorded cell phone video of Travis McMichael shooting Arbery in the street. More than 2 months passed without arrests until Bryan's graphic video of the killing leaked online, and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation took over the case from local police. Charges soon followed. All 3 men were convicted of murder in a Georgia state court in late 2021. After a second trial in early 2022 in federal court, a jury found the trio guilty of hate crimes and attempted kidnapping, concluding the men targeted Arbery because he was black. In legal briefs filed ahead of their appeals court arguments, lawyers for Greg McMichael and Bryan cited prosecutors' use of more than 24 social media posts and text messages, as well as witness testimony that showed all 3 men using racist slurs or otherwise disparaging black people. Bryan's attorney, Pete Theodosian, said Bryan's past racist statements inflamed the trial jury while failing to prove that Arbery was pursued because of his race. Instead, Arbery was chased because the 3 men mistakenly suspected he was a fleeing criminal, like a black guy. And that was according to A.J. Balbo, Greg McMichael's lawyer. Greg McMichael initiated the chase when Arbery ran past his home, saying he recognized the young black man from security camera videos that in prior months showed him entering a neighboring home under construction. None of the videos showed him stealing, and Arbery was unarmed and had no stolen property when he was killed. Prosecutors said in written briefs that the trial evidence showed long-standing hate and prejudice toward black people influenced the defendant's assumptions that Arbery was committing a crime. In Travis McMichael's appeal, attorney Amy Lee Copeland did not dispute the jury's finding that he was motivated by racism. The social media evidence included a 2018 Facebook comment Travis made on a video of a black man playing a prank on a white person. He used an expletive and a racial slur, writing, "I'd kill that," and it must have been the N-word. The reporters don't let us know. It's just an ellipse. Instead, Copeland based her appeal on legal technicalities. She said the prosecutors failed to prove the streets of the Satilla Shores subdivision where Arbery was killed were public roads, as stated in the indictment used to charge the men. Copeland cited records of a 1958 meeting of Glynn County commissioners in which they rejected taking ownership of the streets from the subdivision's developer. At the trial, prosecutors relied on a service request, records, and testimony from a county official to show the streets have been maintained by the county government. Attorneys for the trio also made technical arguments for overturning their attempted kidnapping convictions. Prosecutors said the charge fit because the men used pickup trucks to cut off Arbery's escape from the neighborhood. The defense attorneys said the charge was improper because their clients were not trying to capture Arbery for ransom or some other benefit, and the trucks were not used as an instrumentality of interstate commerce. Both are required elements for attempted kidnapping to be a federal crime. Well, prosecutors countered and said other federal appellate circuits have ruled that an automobile used in a kidnapping qualifies as an instrument of interstate commerce. And they said the benefit the men sought was to fulfill their personal desires to carry out vigilante justice. And we all know that is priceless. The trial judge sentenced both McMichaels to life in prison for their hate crime convictions, plus additional time, 10 years for Travis and 7 years for his father, for brandishing guns while committing violent crimes. Brian received a lighter hate crime sentence of 35 years in prison, in part because he was not armed and preserved the cell phone video that became crucial evidence. All three also got 20 years in prison for attempted kidnapping, but the judge ordered that time to overlap with their hate crime sentences. If the U.S. Appeals Court overturns any of their federal convictions, both McMichaels and Brian would remain in prison. All three are serving life sentences in Georgia state prisons for murder and have motions for new state trials pending before a judge. Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. A large suburban Philadelphia county has joined dozens of other local governments around the country in suing the oil industry, asserting that major oil producers systematically deceive the public about their role in accelerating global warming. Bucks County's lawsuit against a half dozen oil companies blames the oil industry for more frequent and intense storms, including one last summer that killed 7 people there. Flooding, saltwater intrusion, extreme heat, and other devastating climate change impacts from the burning of fossil fuels. The county wants oil producers to pay to mitigate the damage caused by climate change. These companies have known since at least the 1950s that their ways of doing business were having calamitous effects on our planet. And rather than change what they were doing or raise the alarm, they lied to all of us, Bucks County Commissioner Jean DeGirolamo said in a statement. The taxpayers should not have to foot the bill for these companies and their greed. Dozens of municipal governments in California, Colorado, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, South Carolina, and Puerto Rico, as well as 8 states and Washington, D.C., have filed suit in recent years against oil and gas companies over their role in climate change, and that's according to the Center for Climate Integrity. Bucks County, which borders Philadelphia and has a population of about 650,000, is the first local government in Pennsylvania to sue, the climate group said. The county's 31 municipalities will spend $955 million through 2040 to address climate change impacts, the group forecast last year. Residents and businesses should not have to bear the costs of climate change alone, the county argued in its suit. It cited several extreme weather events in Bucks County, including a severe storm in July that dumped 7 inches of rain in 45 minutes and caused a deadly flash flood. The suit named as defendants BP, Chevron, ConocoPhillips, ExxonMobil, Phillips 66, Shell, and the American Petroleum Institute, an industry group said. Chevron said through its attorney that addressing climate change requires a coordinated international policy response, not meritless local litigation over lawful and essential energy production. Well, you know, we did have an agreement on climate that was signed in Paris that Donald J. Trump nullified. All right, with that good news, let us now go to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, That Kind of Movie. Although I rarely get to enjoy films with strong visual storytelling as opposed to just strong visual presentation, which is nice, it's even rarer that I get to see filmmakers weaving a visually and conceptually layered tale. Enter Love Lies Bleeding. We start with a drone shot of the starry night sky, and then we drop into The Crater, a small warehouse gym in southern New Mexico in the early 80s. People working out, getting stronger, and then cut to our protagonist elbow deep in human sewage in a cramped bathroom stall manually unclogging a toilet. We've hit bottom, and now we know about Lou. Her life is figuratively and literally in the crapper. It's that kind of film. We've also just been introduced to a couple of its main motifs. One, bodies. Not just the traditional cinematic voyeuristic appreciation of the external body, but how we stress them and modify them, and soon what we put into them and what we excrete, both intentionally and un. And later on, enhancements. Houses for sleeping out, cars for walking, guns for fist, steroids for working out. Enhancements which quickly lead us to situations beyond our ability to manage. 2, captivity. So many places where characters are imagistically or situationally trapped. Can I tell you my favorite captivity motif? How all the characters have pets. Because we both emotionally and materially care for pets, but we also control them and confine them in cages and tanks and terrariums, which also describes this film's human relationships, where people yearn for honest connections but are forced to lie, manipulate, and compromise in order to get them and keep them, where love is deeply desired and feels great but makes you strive and suffer and inevitably is a path towards self-destruction. Love Lies Bleeding is a noir-inspired, 80s cinema-inspired, realistic, gritty world with unapologetic moments of surrealism. It won't make you feel good unless, like me, watching really well-told stories does. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Welcome to this edition of PCD Soundbites. I'm Karen Ngowe, filling in for your host, LaToya Simmons. Current guidelines recommend adults get at least 2.5 hours of moderate-intensity aerobic activity a week, like brisk walking. But many Americans don't get enough physical activity to meet this guideline, which can lead to chronic disease and premature death. Joining me today is Dr. Susan Carlson, a lead epidemiologist in CDC's Division of Nutrition, Physical Activity, and Obesity. We'll be discussing her research, which aims to estimate the percentage of U.S. deaths attributed to inadequate levels of physical activity. Thank you for being here, Susan.
Thank you for inviting me, Karen.
Susan, give us a brief overview of your study.
As Karen stated, the current aerobic physical activity guideline recommends that adults participate weekly in at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity, or its equivalent for substantial health benefits. The health benefits include such things as lowering the risk of premature death, heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, certain types of cancers, and depression. In our study, we first examined what influence physical activity levels below the current guideline have on premature mortality, and we wanted to look at whether this association differed by age. The second purpose was really to estimate the percentage of deaths that are attributable to levels of physical activity that are inadequate to meet the current guideline.
What did your research reveal about the association between inadequate physical activity and premature death among American adults?
So in a nationally representative sample of U.S. adults, we found that adults with levels of physical activity inadequate to meet current guidelines had an increased risk of premature death. Overall, we found that 8.3% of deaths were attributed to inadequate levels of physical activity. Our findings suggest that if you increase adults' physical activity levels to meet the current guidelines, this is likely one way to reduce the risk of premature death in the United States.
What did you find when you looked at this association in different age groups?
We did not find a significant association between physical activity level and mortality in adults aged 25 to 39. However, for those aged 40 to 69 and 70 or older, we found that not meeting the guideline was associated with an increased risk of premature mortality.
How did these findings compare to previous similar studies?
We found that our estimates were similar or slightly lower when comparing to similar studies that have examined this association. In general, our estimates of the percent of deaths attributable to inadequate levels of physical activity is not practically different from other studies.
Do you think researchers have become better at estimating the percentage of deaths attributed to inadequate physical activity?
Estimating the percentage can be challenging. Many of the previous studies that have provided these estimates have done so by combining estimates across different sources. This can really bias results, especially if there are differences in the populations or if the physical activity measure differs. When you use a survival analysis conducted in a single population, which is what we did in this study, you can overcome a lot of these biases and improve your estimates. Facilitating the linking of CDC survey data from systems like the National Health Interview Survey to mortality data can really help researchers explore these issues.
How do you think this research can be used to help get adults moving and reduce the risk of premature death associated with inadequate physical activity?
So we found in this study that a significant portion of deaths were attributed to lower levels of physical activity. By estimating the public health burden of low levels of physical activity, this can be important for setting research and program priorities and for public health planning at the national, state, and local level. Ultimately, individuals make the decision to be active. However, this decision can be made easier by programs and policies that provide opportunities for physical activity and by making communities more activity-friendly. By working collaboratively across different sectors, communities across the nation can help to increase physical activity levels and potentially reduce the risk of premature death.
Thank you, Susan. You can read her study, Percentage of Deaths Associated with Inadequate Physical Activity in the United States, online at cdc.gov/PCD. The findings and conclusions in this report are those of the author and do not necessarily represent the official position of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. 5 states are considering legislation banning electronic ballot tabulators, driven by debunked conspiracy theories that the machines were used to rig the 2020 election. Where hand counting has been implemented, it's less accurate, takes longer, and costs more. Bills in Kansas, Missouri, Kentucky, Arizona, and South Carolina all propose banning optical ballot tabulators, which would include machines by Dominion Voting Systems and other companies. VoteBeat Texas reported on Republicans in one Texas county who did count 8,000 GOP primary ballots by hand. It took 24 hours, involved 200 workers, and resulted in multiple human errors. The 2020 primary election in Gillespie County used electronic tabulators, required only 45 workers, and the process took only a few hours. But voters in some areas are fed up. Earlier this month, voters in 22 of 23 New Hampshire towns defeated a coordinated effort to ban tabulators at the local level. In conspiracy hotbed Shasta County, California, county supervisors doubled down in February, voting to hand count the 2024 election, despite a new state law restricting when hand counting can be used. But the Shasta Scout reports that in the March 5th primary, one of those supervisors was ousted and another is within a few votes of being recalled. We have more at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 2002. That was the day that the U.S. Supreme Court handed down its decision in the case Hoffman Plastic Compound Incorporated versus the National Labor Relations Board. This case had profound importance for undocumented workers in the United States. The conflict began 14 years before, as the United Cork Linoleum and Plastic Workers of America began an organizing drive at Hoffman. The California company made plastic pipeworks. Hoffman retaliated by firing all the employees that supported the union. One of those fired was Jose Castro, an undocumented worker. The fired workers took their case to the National Labor Relations Board, where they won. The board ruled that the company had to provide back pay for the workers it had unfairly fired. This ruling included Castro. The company decided to fight the decision, and the case wound its way through the courts for a decade. Finally, it arrived on the Supreme Court docket. The highest court in the land ruled in favor of the company in a 5-4 decision. It ruled that as an undocumented worker, Castro could not claim back pay. Writing for the dissent, Justice Stephen Breyer warned that the decision, quote, might very well increase the strength of this magnetic force of undocumented migration. If employers do not worry about the penalties for breaking the law that protect workers, they might be more likely to hire undocumented labor. 10 years after the case, an article in the Princeton Law Review called the decision, quote, a powerful legal symbol of exclusion of immigrant workers. Trying to divide the workforce has long been a tactic of owners determined to break the power of labor. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 48 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting highs only in the mid-50s. Looks like we will have rain likely for the next several hours, bringing with it almost 3/4 of an inch of rain. And it should be locally heavy at times. And the winds will be out of the southwest today at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then cloudy with showers overnight, lows around 40, winds out of the southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, and should bring with it overnight about 1/4 inch of rain. And then another 1/4 inch of rain is expected tomorrow, but as a steady light rain in the morning, showers continuing in the afternoon, highs only in the low 50s. Winds will be out of the southwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour, so picking up the wind speed a little bit. Grass pollen is rated as moderate right outside the window here in Rogue River proper. The air quality index for the region is in the good range at 21 parts per million, and that daytime UV index remains moderate at level 5. Barometric pressure is falling at 29.88 inches. Visibility is at 6 miles. And relative humidity is at 95%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. London is 49 degrees and cloudy. Paris is 55 degrees with rain and a wind advisory, heavy wind advisory. Rome is 54 and partly cloudy with potential disruption due to rain. Bagram is 48 degrees with light rain. Hong Kong is 61 with light rain. Tokyo is 50 degrees and mostly cloudy. Melbourne, Victoria, Australia is 62 degrees and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 53, mostly cloudy with a small craft advisory on the bay. Chicago, Illinois is a freezing 31 degrees and cloudy with its own small craft advisory on the lake. And New York, New York is 46 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Jill Lawless at the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. The British Museum went to court yesterday, Tuesday, against a former curator, alleged to have stolen hundreds of artifacts from its collection and offered them for sale online. The museum is suing Peter Higgs, who was fired in July of 2023 after more than 1,800 items were discovered to be missing. Lawyers for the museum say Higgs abused his position of trust to steal ancient gems, gold jewelry, and other pieces from storerooms over the course of a decade. High Court Judge Heather Williams ordered Higgs to list or return any items in his possession within 4 weeks. She also ordered the disclosure of his eBay and PayPal records. The museum says it has recovered 356 of the missing items so far and hopes to get more back. The items that have been stolen from the museum are of cultural and historical significance, museum lawyer Daniel Burgess said in a written legal arguments. Burgess said the defendant tried to cover his tracks by using fake names, creating false documents, manipulating the museum's records, and selling artifacts at less than their value. Higgs, who worked in the museum's Greece and Rome department for more than 2 decades, denies the allegations and intends to dispute the museum's legal claim. He did not attend yesterday's hearing due to poor health, his lawyer said. A separate police investigation into the case is ongoing, and Higgs has not been charged with a crime. Museum Director Hartwig Fisher resigned after the loss of the items was revealed in August, apologizing for failing to take seriously enough a warning from an art historian that artifacts from its collection were being sold on eBay. Chairman of Trustees George Osborne has acknowledged that the reputation of the 265-year-old institution has been damaged by the episode. But the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Puerto Rico's health secretary declared an epidemic on Monday following a spike in dengue cases. The U.S. territory of 3.2 million people has reported at least 549 cases so far just this year, compared with a total of 1,293 cases for all of last year. The majority of cases have been reported in the capital of San Juan. More than 340 people have been hospitalized for the mosquito-borne virus, according to the island's health department. Puerto Rico last declared a dengue epidemic in 2012. More than 5 million dengue cases were reported worldwide last year, with nearly 80% of them occurring in the Western Hemisphere, according to the World Health Organization. The region has reported some 3 million cases so far this year, with health officials noting that higher rainfall, along with humidity and heat linked to climate change, have contributed to a rise in cases. The virus can cause crushing headaches, fever, vomiting, a rash, and other symptoms. While most infected people don't get symptoms, severe cases can lead to plasma leakage. I think that means bleeding out of your eyes. And possible death. Well, looks like we better do something about vector control. Huh? That brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.